Welcome to Voices of CFMA, sponsored by Premier Construction Software. I'm your host, Sal Marino, and today I'm joined by Claire Wilson, co-founder and CEO of Siteline. Claire is a civil engineer by training, a former project manager at Tishman Construction, a CFMA Building Profits author, and a familiar face at CFMA's annual conference and exhibition. We're going to talk about what she saw in the field that led her to build Siteline, what's really driving cash flow problems for subs, and a lot more. Claire, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Let's start at the beginning. You went from a civil engineering degree at Bucknell to project management at Tishman, working on Hudson Yards, JP Morgan's corporate headquarters. What drew you to the PM side rather than a traditional engineering path?
Yeah, absolutely. So I owe it all to one of my professors at Bucknell, who kind of recognized, he was like, look, you're a super social person and you love working with people and problem solving. And he's like, I just don't envision you being happy in a structural design role. You're going to spend years sitting at a computer, not working with other folks. And I just don't think you're going to be happy. And we had these two brothers who went to Bucknell come and present to our class on their experience working for Tishman Construction in New York City. And they talked about working on the Freedom Tower. And I was just like, this is it. This is so cool. This is exactly what I want to be doing. Like the complex logistics of working on these mega projects in New York City, like it just inspired me so much. So that's where I went. And yeah, didn't regret it at all. It was amazing.
That's awesome. Okay, so your professor changed things.
Yeah.
Was there ever, like, did you see yourself eventually going like the entrepreneurial route, or did that come out of frustration?
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't. I
Okay.
also I love construction, and I could have seen my entire career staying
Yeah.
with the general contractor that I worked for. It was kind of serendipitous, actually. I had a friend connect me to my co-founder, Loria. She's much more entrepreneurial, and she has a background in fintech. And she was looking for an industry that was ripe for disruption in terms of how money flows, and naturally came across construction. So she was interviewing and spending time with talking to folks in the industry, and we just totally hit it off. And I was like, this is a really, really huge problem. And I think like we're the team that can tackle this. And I moved to San Francisco. And at the time I was a little nervous. Obviously it was a risky move, but I was like, construction isn't going anywhere. So I can always go
Right.
back if things don't pan out.
So Sightline came directly out of your experience watching how billing and payment worked, right? So what specifically did you see at Tishman that convinced you the problem was big enough to build a company around? Because that seems like a huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a couple things. I mean, um, getting paid was like such a friction point between
Yeah.
us and the trade partners that we worked with. Like, if an owner of a subcontractor that I was managing came like storming into the office and I like would, lock eyes with them and I'd be like, crap, we didn't pay them. That's the problem.
Right.
Like it created a lot of friction, and it was, and then kind of digging into the problem a little bit more, looking at the general contractor I was with, we had different requirements on different projects that we worked on because a lot of the times it came down from the owner or the developer that we were working with. Related at Hudson Yards had
Right.
different needs than what JP Morgan Chase had at 270 Park. So then like digging in further, it was like, okay, if you have variations across this one client, like what does it look like across all of the projects that you're working on? And how do you manage that when you're working in 40 different states? And like, not only are there client specific responsibilities, but there's also legal implications of doing work in different states and what you need to do from, lien rights perspective and things like that. So, and just spending time with some of these like really great builders that I worked with and, going to their back office and seeing the filing cabinets and the like one person that everyone's like, thank goodness for her because everything would fall through the cracks, if she ever left us. And that was like, okay, there's got to be, a better way to handle this. And also, I was on a team where we were often like the guinea pig for new software solutions that came out. And just seeing how much was getting invested in construction tech built specifically for general contractors was like kind of a frustration for me because there were, so much risk is pushed down onto the subcontractors, but there wasn't a lot in terms of investments in construction tech and software to like help
Right.
them manage this process. So that's where it was too, like, I was like, we gotta help the contractors that are actually doing the work here and the ones that are carrying so much risk. And they're the ones that feel the pain the most with when it comes to getting paid.
Right. Yeah. What was the reaction like when you started talking to subcontractors about it? Like, did they immediately get it, or did you have to convince them that this problem was solvable?
Yeah, I think they immediately understood the problem, but being open minded to software solving the problem, I think was like a hurdle that we had to get over. But we're working with contractors in 38 states now, and I am very proud of like the reputation that we've built. So I think people are kind of finally like leaning in and being like, okay, they're doing something here and they're making a difference. So that's been great.
Nice. So, for people who don't know or haven't come across Sightline yet, give us the quick version: who it's for, what it does, and what problem it actually solves day to day.
Yeah. So um, we built our product for the subs. So for subcontractors, all trades, we're trade agnostic, and we work with a very wide range of contractors as well. So we have smaller, contractors where there's that one person who's responsible for everything in the back office, and then we have contractors with like 40 offices across the United States, and maybe they bought Sightline to like centralize billing in the back office or just like improve efficiency and visibility across the whole business. But the way I would describe the product is kind of like a billing command center. Everything that you have to do to get paid that you're doing manually, that's what we have in our system. And that's what we try to, automate for the team and also just give you a centralized place to manage it. And like we put guardrails on the process or like an easy button for billing. So you don't have to think about, okay, what do I need for this specific job? Or you're not like laying in bed at night thinking, oh my gosh, did we like miss the window to send a notice of intent to lien for that project that we still haven't gotten paid on? So it makes sure like nothing slips through the cracks as it relates to like getting paid.
Very nice. And you said so specifically for subcontractors, not GCs. Why was that focus important from the start?
Because I think like in the construction tech space, there's so many software solutions that are built for general contractors and kind of repackaged and resold to subcontractors. And it's not
Right.
thoughtful about like their workflow and what they need to do. So we wanted to be really intentional about focusing specifically on the trades and hearing from them and getting feedback from them and building for their workflows in mind. So yeah, that's been our strategy.
Nice. What's it look like in practice when a sub goes from their old process to using Sightline? What changes?
Yeah, I mean, a lot changes. You're going to have like all of those spreadsheets saved in different folders on your server, all just like within a system essentially. So it's one central place that everyone can just log in and see the status of like, you know, what's going on with this project, who's our slowest paying client, which office is getting cash in the door fastest. You have this whole dashboard to look at your lien rates for every project, the status of the pay applications. So I think like we've tried really hard to be intentional about how like we build the workflows so that it's not forcing like a major change for the subcontractors, but really just like getting it all in a system for them. So it's very customizable in terms of like what we can generate. Like we have 20,000 different client forms in our database now. So as a subcontractor, you're not really able to say, I'm using this system now and this is how I bill. We have to be able to support like whatever the client requires of them in the contract. So
Okay.
it's all just taking your current scattered workflow and just putting it like in a streamlined system.
Very nice. You wrote a piece earlier this year about what ASA think tank taught you, the idea that construction will humble you and you shouldn't go it alone. Where does that philosophy come from you personally?
Yeah, I think I'm reading this book right now, written by this venture capitalist Bill Gurley, and he has this whole chapter where he talks about the importance of peers. Like everyone talks about how important it is to have mentors, but having
Right.
peers that are, you know, tackling a similar challenge or going through a similar thing, like there's so much value in that. And I've personally learned so much from being members of these associations and spending time with contractors. And I think with certain associations, it really makes people open up and be honest about the challenges they're facing as a business. And like, you know, it just creates this community feel where it's like, it's not a contractor I'm competing with on a day-to-day basis. Like we're all just going to come together and share and learn like, hey, we're all facing similar challenges here. And, we're stronger if we put our heads together. And I think like something that's really common in the industry is peer groups, which I know CFMA hosts some as well. And
Yeah.
I just had a customer this week actually who called me up and was like, we have this peer group. We meet twice a year. It's, drywall contractors all over the US. And we like to share things that are going really well for us and teach each other those things. And like Siteline has been one of those things. And would you like to come and, share what Siteline does to the rest of the group? And I had the benefit of kind of sitting in and listening to some of the other conversations and just like hearing them support each other and, give each other ideas and be like, this is something we're trying in our, geo, and this is what's working, this is what isn't. And I think that's really where people can like level up. So I think it's
Yeah.
awesome. CFMA also, like with the CFMA cafe, like if you don't have the opportunity to go to some of the in-person events, even though there's so many at the chapter level, like I always push people towards CFMA cafe. Like if you
Right.
are struggling with something, post it in there and like you will be amazed at how helpful the the community and network is there. Like everyone's going to chime in and be like, we had the same thing and this is what we tried. Or, this is a software solution we tried and it didn't work out for XYZ reasons. Did other people have those situations? So I just think it's great. And construction is such a relationship business, so having those like peers I think is really valuable. And I think having like that curated group of contract like leaders in the finance space in construction really also just like creates this just like openness and such an environment for people to learn. And you don't get that
Yeah.
from like a LinkedIn, right? Like everyone's using
Right.
LinkedIn to try to like build their brand at this point and like being really thoughtful about the posts instead of just being like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm struggling with
I
this,
got to,
can someone help?
right. Exactly. Speaking of, is there a lesson you learned the hard way that you'd want other founders or finance leaders in the space to hear or learn from, or both?
I guess I don't know if this is like a lesson or maybe just like something I feel like has gone really well for us, but nothing replaces like the in-person conversations and, spending time with the people that you're building product for. And
Right.
think like, with AI moving as quickly as it is, I think a lot of people think like, oh, I can just build a solution quickly to like solve this problem, but they don't like dig enough deep into the actual, complexities and details of that issue. So I think like, no matter how amazing you think your response is that you're getting out of Claude, like nothing will replace the actual time spent with the people that you're building for.
You've written for CFMA Building Profits magazine. It's read by a lot of construction finance professionals across the country. How do you approach writing for that audience, people who have been in the trenches for decades?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's a very knowledgeable audience. So I think writing for this specific audience really forces you to do your homework and to dig deeper and to find what's actually genuinely useful, not just stuff to fill the space. So I really enjoy
Right.
it because I always learn a little bit in the process. And it's always fed directly back into the conversations that I'm having with, contractors that we're working with. And so it's valuable to me too. I always learn a lot from the process.
That's great. Is there a topic that you've written about where you got pushback or where the conversation went somewhere unexpected?
I don't know if necessarily like a topic in building profits. I think we at CFMA annual last year, we did a general contractor subcontractor couples therapy session. So this isn't,
Okay.
an article, but it's a
Yeah.
session that we did at the annual conference. And there's always like a little pushback on that from like the general contractor side of, hey, we have all of these, requirements written out in your contract that you signed. Like it's not our fault that you don't have the systems
Right.
in place to like properly manage this stuff. Like we're not going to babysit you. So I think there's like some like healthy pushback, I guess, in that type of conversation of,
Yeah.
who's really responsible for this problem.
Right. I love it. So, and while we're talking about it, you've made CFMA's annual conference and exhibition a regular stop. What keeps you coming back, and what do you get out of it? I guess that you can't maybe get from a webinar or a trade publication.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I've talked a little bit on this about how important it is to, I think, to actually like meet people in person and shake their
Right.
hand and spend time with them in person. I think that's invaluable. But CFMA annual is like far and away one of everyone on the team's favorite conferences. We all get in like battles over who gets to go. And I'm like fortunate that I go every year, but the team's like, well, I want to go to that one. And I think what's really great about CFMA annual as opposed to like, you know, some other associations that are maybe like trade specific or even like for subcontractors, like CFMA is obviously financial focused. So it's like really the only conference where you have a lot of financial leaders present. And naturally, what comes with that is like better educational sessions. So every year I go, like I feel like I learn something different.
Nice.
Like a lot of the conferences that you see, you're seeing kind of the same recycled content every year. So I think CFMA definitely puts effort in to make sure that there's fresh content every year with educational sessions. And then as we've built the business, we've had more and more customers who are at the annual show. So it's really fun just to get to spend some time with our customers in person and like hear stories from them in person about how they're using our product and the value that they're getting out of it. So I'd say like a lot of different things. But yeah, we love it. We
Nice.
really look forward to it.
That's great. What would you tell maybe a first time attendee about how to make the most of it?
I would say like go to as much as possible. It's
Yeah.
really, I fall into this trap sometimes too because it's a little bit of a longer show. So you're like, man, I can't like fully unplug for this
Right.
whole period of time. Like I need to be able to like run back to my room and work. But um, I would say like as much as possible, try to block off your calendar and be really present. Like go to all the networking events, go to all the sessions. And then I would say for the exhibit hall, I think it's really important to spend a little bit of time reflecting before the conference on what are some of the challenges and like bottlenecks within the business and financial workflows and like what are we trying to solve and go into that exhibit hall with that mindset of like, okay, here's accounts receivable workflows have been
Right.
really painful for us, especially if we've been scaling the business or, we've lost lien rights and had to take it on the chin and we didn't get paid. So let's focus on something like that. And then go into the exhibit hall looking for those specific things because otherwise you're just going to, it's overwhelming and there are so many
Yeah.
new solutions out there these days and you're going to get sold AI left and right. So you want to be like really thoughtful about trying to solve like real problems for the business right now.
All right. That was great advice. So what do you get up to when you're not working? What are your hobbies?
I'm like, that doesn't happen that often these days. I would say, so I have a 9-month-old.
Oh,
So I
congratulations.
love spending time with him. And I try to be like every day, I try to block off an hour where I'm just like hanging out with him and having fun and playing. And he's like crawling all over the place now. So that's really fun. So spending time with him is probably the biggest thing. And
Yeah.
then I have a dog too. So I love like, I live in San Francisco, going for hikes with the dog or, beach walks with the dog and baby are like probably my favorite
Oh,
thing to do.
that's awesome. How old's the dog?
He's 2.
Oh, awesome. So still young.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh yeah. He's got a lot of energy.
Yeah, right. I'm surprised that your hobby is just not sleeping with a 2-year-old puppy and a and a 9-month-old child.
Yeah. Yeah. It's chaos in our apartment, but it's a lot of fun.
So what's next for you and for Sightline? Where do you see the biggest opportunity to move the needle for subcontractors in the next few years?
Yeah, there are so many things that we want to focus on from a product perspective, and everything that we do is focused on getting contractors paid. So, we just launched our lien rights tracker, which has all the state-specific laws built into the product, so that if you work across different states or you're expanding the business, like um, you're never going to miss a deadline because it varies so much. We've learned so much from building that product. So I think going deep, continuing to go deep on protecting your rights to lien when you're not getting paid. And we're doing a lot on the collections side also. So automating follow up with clients, helping
Okay.
write emails and understand like what things actually move the needle as it relates to collections. When this person gets involved, you get paid the next day, like that kind of insights. And we've also built, we're calling it like Project Snapshot. It's essentially an automated whip within the platform, but giving contractors more insights. We're thinking about having a chatbot within the system. So you can just prompt like really quick questions of like what projects are at risk from a financial perspective. Where should I spend my time focusing today? Or what invoices should we be chasing down? Those types of things. Layering in more AI and automation into the platform, but everything we're building is like focusing on the trades and helping them get paid.
All right. If you if you could change one thing about how the construction industry approaches financial management, not a product necessarily, but maybe a mindset, what do you think it would be?
I think there is often a response I get from folks that like, this is the way of the industry. We work in the slowest
Right.
paying industry and there's nothing we can do about it. So I would say like trying to change that mindset of being open minded to what's possible. And also not just like having your blinders on and focusing on your day-to-day tasks of, okay, what invoices are outstanding that I need to follow up on, but actually taking a step back and looking at what is our process, map out what we do to get paid on our projects. Let's map out our AR escalation process. Like, what actually do we do when we don't get paid? And I think the first step is recognizing that's something that we can be better. And then the second step is actually taking a step back from the craziness of the day to day and going through all of these like forms and stuff and trying to figure out an opportunity for improvement and like looking for bottlenecks. And we try to do that with our product of just like giving you some information that you wouldn't necessarily see if you're looking in the day to day. But
Right.
yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say on this episode before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so.
Well, everyone, that's a wrap on this month's episode of Voices of CFMA. A big thank you to Claire Wilson for joining us and to our sponsor, Premier Construction Software. If you'd like to learn more about Siteline or connect with Claire, we'll have links in the show notes. And if you want to learn more about CFMA, please visit cfma.org. Until next month, once again, I'm Sal Marino, and we'll see everyone back here then. Thanks.